Welcome back, everyone. It's time to get into some hinge discussion. All right, we're gonna get into release function a little bit and selection in this video. And the whole reason for this coming about is, as I've changed in the last few years from last year, for example, shooting a 75-pound bow at 80% let off with that 15-ish, 16 pounds of holding weight, to this year, going to the new RX-7 Ultra at 80 pounds and 80% let off. I'm in that 16, 17 pounds of holding weight, which doesn't seem like it's a ton of difference. But when you have a release like this one that I've been shooting for years, I've been hunting with this for, I don't know, 6, 7 years probably, maybe more, that does not have micro adjust anywhere, and you get drawn back and you're anchored up and you start to shoot shots, it seems like with this release in its current setting, with more holding weight, my shots are firing a little bit quicker than I want. And when we start talking about shot rhythm and getting in that routine and that rhythm of drawing back, acquiring the target, finding a hold, and then starting to squeeze and getting that shot to break in that whatever 3 to 5 seconds, 5 to 7 seconds, whatever your shot window typically is, becomes problematic when you can't make the adjustments. But that got me thinking in general about just release selection as a whole. And when you start considering new releases as I am now and again, I mean, I've got a pile of releases here that I've acquired over the last few years from trying them out in just over time. What I can tell you right now, my personal characteristics, I like a slightly swept back handle. And the reason for that is when I have just my hand in a kind of an open position, comfortable open position, the fingers just naturally taper. So this release in my hand, just feels natural, as even when I have a little bit of tension on it or when I have no tension on it. It's a comfortable feel with the handle. I've shot releases that have less of a taper, but what that makes me feel when I have my anchor point, it makes me feel like my hand is almost, the pinky's pointed way forward. Sorry about that. Pinky's pointed way forward. So with that, it's not as comfortable of a squeeze and a transition when I'm actually executing the shot. This show is brought to you by ArcheryAuctionPros.com. If you're in the market for a new bow, but don't want to spend that steep price tag that some of these new bows are demanding, consider a used bow, gently used bow, with an evaluation certificate. Every bow sold on ArcheryAuctionPros.com is evaluated by No Limits Archery and is going to give you a true representation of the condition of the bow you're looking at. So head on over. We've got bows that go up every week for auction. Once again, ArcheryAuctionPros.com. So with that being said, the 3 points I want to talk to you about, with release selections, comfort, right? You want to try to find a release that's comfortable in your hand. Ton of different design features, whether it's more rounded on the release, whether it's narrower, whether some of these, taper towards the bottom. Ton of design features. In addition to that, if you're somebody who has big fingers, some of these releases are going to be uncomfortable when you stick your finger in there. If this half moon gets too close, so there are different sizes, but another example is if you have a finger hole, and if to get your finger in its comfortable position, which I recommend it to be right in between the two knuckles there, this size hole may be too small for some, or too big for somebody, or too small to where it's just not comfortable. And then again, understanding if some of these releases have the ability to manipulate the positioning of a third and or fourth finger. Again, all things that you should consider, but the comfort factor is huge. Another one that I did not realize, I have the ability with this specific release, this one's made by B3, to adjust this finger, and they even have 2 different third finger options. But the barrel position where you would actually draw the bow back from is quite a bit further away than some of these other ones, and it's maybe twice as far as you might say from the handle position to the thumb barrel to where you're holding it from. You might not think that's a big deal, but when I draw that back, it almost feels like my hand's just like wide open when I get back there, and it's a little different feeling for me. So anyway, something to consider, right? Little small intricacies about some of these releases, But from a comfort factor, again, once you get drawn back and anchored, I really feel it's very important to make sure you're comfortable and relaxed in that position. You get in a high pressure situation and you don't know if, I mean, you may know, but you may be white knuckling a release, or you may think you're white knuckling a release and you really don't have enough tension on there, or you've altered your tension position. So make sure you pick something first that's very comfortable. Second to that is just understanding how these releases fire. They have for a long time, you know, I've heard these things called back tension releases, and they're not a back tension release. You should, in my opinion, use back tension to shoot every release, whether it's a index finger, a thumb button, or a hinge, or a tension release, right? A true tension release. The hinge releases need secondary leverage, a secondary movement, and that's usually done by rotation, okay? Some would argue if your hand is in the right place and you've engaged your back, as you're, you know, engaging your scapula and squeezing with your back, it's going to create rotation to get it to fire. Maybe not enough. In some situations, you might have to set that release so light in doing so just to get it to fire. Because in this situation, I mean, I can have this handle anchored up and I can pull pressure on this release all day long with my back and it won't go off. As soon as I get engaged on my back and I start to introduce some rotation, it gets it to fire. So understanding that these releases need movement, need rotation to get them to fire. And with that being said, that brings me back to my original point of why I'm considering changing this, and it's because of the fact that I just can't adjust it. You know, this release is old school. It's where you got to take your Allen wrench in the back here, loosen the set screw, and you have to manually move that half moon, stick your set screw back in and try to tighten it up. You know, over time, you know, you just realize that it's not perfect. You can get them close, but not perfect. And that's why I have two of these. They're set a little bit different from each other for the reason that, you know, if I have one of them that just seems like it's going off too fast or one of them too slow, I can switch up. But it's just gotten to the point where technology's come so far that a lot of these heads are so easy to adjust, and they have, you know, they have so many additional features to make the shot and the utilization of this type of tool just more forgiving and easier to use. So that's where, again, just going down my process, you know, that's led me to consider changing. And granted, this has been a process for years that I haven't really changed, but I really feel it's time to just take that leap. And now that it's earlier in the year, a lot of time to practice, I'm going to go ahead and do that. But again, to refresh, number one, just comfort, right? Finding something that feels comfortable in your hand and is not, you know, hitting your fingers anywhere. Whether you decide to use a swept back handle, a more flat handle, 2-finger, 3-finger, 4-finger, those things, they need to feel comfortable in your hand naturally when you're at full draw. Secondly, every hinge release needs movement. So with that being said, that kind of leads me into the last tip here is release settings, the tension and the speed of some of these hinges, because not every hinge, this is one of my old school hinges that I shot for years, the action on this half moon in conjunction with this head, this is not the same as this one, okay? And with my personal style of shooting, I've found it more comfortable and consistent from a rhythm standpoint, that this action on this head suited me better. So, you know, obviously going to a different release in the same brand is one good option. You know, there's other brands that are similar that have a lot of adjustment, and some of them you can actually change the speed and if it's a hotter head or a slower head, you can change that. So understand that the action is also a factor that most people aren't going to talk about. And one way you can figure it out is just as you start setting these up and shooting them, you may notice or you may feel that certain releases really feel like you got to get a lot of rotation to get it to go off. Other releases, you make an adjustment and it's like pops, goes right off. You make it a little adjustment and it goes off quickly. So maybe the action on certain heads, that head is just that the head position moves quicker based off the type of moon that it's sliding up against, is going to create a quicker shot or a slower shot. So all those kind of moving parts together that will then tie back into your shot, your anchor point, your rhythm with how you decide to shoot, whether you're lightening tension on an index finger, whether you're applying more tension with your ring finger, or you're just really using your back to try to create that movement and add some rotation in slightly with the hand position. Whichever method you shoot, that's irrelevant as far as you know, getting the shot to fire. What's important is finding the right tool that meshes with your style to get that shot to fire consistently from a good rhythm standpoint, from a good timing standpoint. So, like I said, start to break it down, start to analyze, start to look at some of these different releases, because I can promise you that this release and this release fire completely at different paces, and in addition to that, this release from its finger position to where it actually hooks onto the D-loop to this one is quite a bit different, even from an anchor point standpoint. So as you start to break these things down, comfort, number one. Number two, remember that you have to have movement leverage. So see which one has the right action and you know, feel for with your type of shot as you start to select releases moving forward. So I hope you enjoyed this video. It's a little different, just from a different perspective on hinge selection. But nonetheless, if you're enjoying the content and you appreciate what we're doing, give us a like, subscribe, hit that bell notification. And we've got more content coming on the RX-7 build as we're breaking down other adjustment points and features on that bow. So those videos are going to be coming soon. So stay tuned, and hope to see some comments down below. Let me know what kind of release you guys like to shoot. Are you shooting a hinge? You know, which one are you shooting? And maybe there's an additional point that, you know, outside of the normal 3-finger, 4-finger, you know, basic, you know, purchasing features, I guess you might say, when you're picking a release. Is there something different you consider when you're picking a hinge release or any type of release? So leave me a comment. We'll see you guys soon.